back. It's hCG Chica. We're on episode 35 of the hCG Diet Interviews with Everyday People. I have Bella with me today. She's actually lost, there she is, hello. She's lost over 60 pounds now with the protocol. She started at over 200 pounds. As you can see her, you see, that's the great thing about video. And if you're listening, you can always go to the blog and check out her before and after photos. But you can see she looks fantastic. She has a really great story to share today. You guys know that I think what I love so much about doing interviews with people is that, you know, sometimes on Facebook or Instagram we get just a tiny snippet of somebody's story, which is really motivating. But once you actually get into the nitty-gritty details of their whole journey, that takes a while to get all those details. And I feel like that's what's really just really what resonates with all of us and helps us to see the struggles that people go through, how they really did make those changes over time. And that's what I find so valuable about them. So anyway, so that's it. Let's just get started. How are you today, Bella?
I'm good.
Cool.
How are you?
I'm good. I was so excited to talk with you. We've kind of been chatting back and forth on social media. You guys can find Bella, her Instagram and YouTube names are Culinary hCG. And she's very just totally awesome with like the whole cooking thing, which I appreciate because it's so not me. So anytime I come across like a creative cooker, baker person, I'm like, oh, we got to share you. So you guys should check her out, Culinary hCG on Instagram and YouTube. She has recipe videos. What's one of the most recent videos that you did? You want to share that?
Yeah, so my favorite is I do like a mustard dressing. A lot of them are apple cider vinegar based, and they can be sort of P2 or P2 Rogue friendly. So yeah, just like you can add stevia if you want it to be like honey mustard, sort of sweeter because you can't have honey right now. But
Yes.
so yeah, you can play with it. It's basically just to learn to play and have fun with it, so you don't feel like you're like, oh, I have to eat this.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
it's amazing how just a few little different changes in flavoring like that can really add a lot to the protocol, Mustard
Yeah.
vinaigrette is absolutely my favorite, like, dressing in the whole world.
I love it too. Yeah, it's so good.
And then the other day you had posted on Instagram this thing with like apples and then like these puffy little balls or something, and I'm like, what is that? It looks really cool.
It's like apples and eggs, like an apple souffle sort of. But yeah, super quick to make. So
Awesome. That's so great.
yeah.
Well, why don't we just get some of your basic stats, like your height, where you started with your weight, where you currently are, and any medical background information.
Okay. Yeah. I come from a family of, I guess, overweight or like weight issues. So a lot of times that comes with diabetes and hypoglycemia. My brother has. But I'm 5'7", and I started at 215, and right now I actually just finished round 5. Tried to forget. I was forgetting there. And I'm in the 72-hour period right now. So yeah, just transitioning, but I'm at 149 today, so I've been hovering. So yeah, I'm happy. I wanted to get into the 140s, and we did it. So
awesome. So about 66 pounds.
Yeah.
How has your size changed with that weight change for you?
Oh my gosh. Let's see. I went from a 20 when I was at my biggest, and that was like, pretty fitted.
Yeah.
And I would always wear Old Navy because I felt like it was it like fit my shape, I guess.
Yeah,
so everything
right.
I wore was Old Navy.
Sure.
And then by the time I guess where I am at now, I generally shop different, but I wear probably about an 8 to a 10. And I wear like a 29 in pants if they're, weight by waist.
So basically, you cut yourself about half.
Right. Yeah.
8 to 8.
I know. I wanted to wear a shirt today that was like, oh, I don't be able to, and like all of them are they just don't.
Wow.
There's no point in shopping.
That's amazing. You cut your sizes in half. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And so you said that you have type 2 diabetes in your family and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was definitely a concern. My mom was heavier, and then she ended up going to the doctor, and they told her she was borderline diabetic, so that she needed to lose weight, which she did. She got on a treadmill first. She walked every night, and she was able to lose 70 pounds and drop herself into a range where she could manage her, I guess, diabetes with food.
Gotcha.
So she's been doing that ever since. I mean, it had to be about, 6 years ago. So, but it was a big wake up call for our family. Just and for me too, just being like, oh, what do I eat? And also, I definitely believe, like your makeup, determines a lot, like what works for you and you eat. Some people can eat tons of carbs and sugar and be fine, like my dad, but I'm more like my mom and it affects my body. So I have to be careful. Yeah.
That's good that you mentioned that too, because it is true. With talking with so many different people, people have different triggers, yeah, and predispositions to certain things. Some people tell me that like, any sugary food kind of makes them crave it and overeat it, and then others say, I'm really not much of a sugar person, and it's more of those salty comfort foods that kind of get me.
Right. Chips and
Cheese
stuff.
and chips, yeah. So yeah, just kind of figuring out, where that is for you. How about like growing up and like eating in your family? Can you, what's the
Yeah.
story there? Because sometimes a lot of these things start when we're younger. Not always, but I'm curious. Did that affect anything for you?
Yeah, definitely. I've sort of coined a term for our family meals, and they're like mega meals. So like we're Hispanic, so definitely when you sit down and eat, you're like sitting for a while,
Yeah.
and you're grazing. I mean, like I need an extra gut, like a cow. Like I mean, we're literally just sitting there and eating a bunch, but it's part of the culture, and I think that sort of goes through you, goes with you through life, so definitely as I started to be maybe more irresponsible about what I was eating, it was in larger quantities. And so we would maybe sit down and have 2 meals a day, but they would be really large meals, and it's hard on your metabolism if you're trying to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had to really focus on changing that. But and our family now, we kind of snack throughout the day, but before it was different.
Gotcha.
So it takes a while to make change, but it happens.
That's
So
cool.
yeah.
So Bella, how about we talk now about what you said you've done? You just finished your 5th round, is that right?
Yeah, I
So
just did.
yeah, so tell me what you did just generically each round, basically.
Okay. You mean in terms of like what I used and
Yeah,
that
what
kind
you used, how many calories, about how much weight you lost, I guess. Yeah.
of? Okay. Yeah. So my first round was I had first learned about the protocol, so it was the Simeon's protocol. It was 500 calorie, and I used. It was a lot easier to find RX from compounding pharmacies then, because that was quite a few years ago. It was 2011. Um, And so I used that, and I used also it came like in a kit, so it was sublingual hCG, and it came with cell salts and B12. So I took that, and I did a 40-day round, and I was able to lose 30 pounds.
Awesome.
And then,
What dose that you were on about? With the drops? With the
oh yeah, I think it's 3 times a day, and it's 10 drops. But there wasn't, it was,
But you
it
don't
came
know
in a
what IU that was. Okay.
Gosh, I wish I could. I have a picture of it like somewhere because I was like, this is what I bought. But yeah,
Interesting.
but
That's
that
30
worked.
pounds. Awesome.
Yeah, that worked great for me. And I think always, you're always trying to get to that first, what you lost in your first round, which isn't really realistic
Right.
because you don't have as much weight to lose and your body composition is different.
Yeah.
But my second round, I did also did 500 calorie, and I did homeopathic drops because I wasn't able to find the compounding pharmacy no longer carried it,
Gotcha.
so I had to order from online. And those I did 500 calories. And I did a 40-day run again, and I was able to lose 20.
Cool.
And so that was, and I ended up maintaining at 75. So most of my maintenance, I noticed I came up like a little bit.
Yeah.
Probably in between like 3 and 5 pounds.
Yeah.
If I was maintaining, like, say if I was like, okay, 8 weeks later, it was anywhere between 3 and 5 pounds of maintenance. So, my third round was, homeopathic pellets.
Okay.
And because I was moving around a lot, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a dream come true. I didn't have to use the dropper.
Yeah.
And I lost 15 that round, and that was an 800,000 calorie round.
Interesting.
So that was the first time that I had ever done that, and it was the same friend that had introduced me to hCG was like, "Oh, you don't have to eat 500 calories. What are you doing eating 500 calories now?" I'm like, "Oh, I need 1,000."
Sure.
Well, definitely, I lost 15, but I did notice that I settled at a higher weight. So, like it was harder for me to maintain because I was eating more food, I think. So when I went into P3, then you're just eating kind of a little bit more, right?
Interesting.
And 1,000 calories, I mean, 500 and 1,000, you know, it's like almost
It's
double
double,
what you're
yeah.
as far as vegetables and everything go.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, so I settled at a little bit of higher weight. I think I settled at like 165 or something.
Gotcha.
And so that was like 5 pounds, like pretty steady that I
Gotcha. So
settled
it's
at.
like your net loss was about 10 actually from that round in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
So it definitely was different. I have to say, you know, I did notice a difference for my own body with homeopathic and RX.
Okay.
Um,
So you
so
just finished up with injections now as well, right?
yeah,
You've done it
I've
all. She's
tried.
done it all. You've done
Yeah,
RX drops, RX injections, and then homeopathic drops and homeopathic pellets.
yeah.
Swapped almost. That's awesome. So
No,
yeah, tell me what your since you've done all that, I would love to hear that your opinion as far as that comparison.
yeah. So I would say hands down, the injections are my favorite. Um, and and my first round, I definitely tried to streamline a lot of, eating issues and like different things like that. So I was like, okay, I can do this better. Every time, you know, you're trying to do it better and better and better. So, round five, I was prepared. I loaded well, and the injections, you only take them once a day. Where a lot of times, if you forget to take your hCG or you don't carry it with you, the homeopathic, you'll get so hangry. I mean, like I just was gonna, yeah,
I would
like, give
totally
me your
blow it.
arm.
If it was me, I would just completely blow it.
Oh yeah, no, and my friend who was also on this round five with me was taking the pellets, and we had very different experiences as far as like I was never hangry at all.
Interesting.
My body was just like, hey, it's time to eat, and then I went and ate. I mean, but I didn't feel like I was gonna explode or anything. So that's a huge thing for me because I think that's a trigger for people when they're like, my body wants food right now, but my body needs it, but I have to have it.
Right.
And so then you might end up eating something you're not happy with later,
Yeah.
instead of
No, I
sticking
mean,
with protocol.
hormones are so powerful, right? I
Yeah,
mean, hormones is probably what drives people to kill people. I don't know.
yeah, right. You're like,
It's
I
like,
had a baby. Yeah.
yeah, there's been times when I've gotten so hungry that like I literally cannot focus on anything else. Like I'm just like I feel like this little wolf going around like I need to get some food. I need some food
What
now.
can I eat? What can
You
I
know?
eat?
So
Yeah.
it's true, like HCG having that proper dosing and the right amount in your system is so
Right.
important to otherwise it's just you can't win against a certain level of hormone that's trying to tell you like to eat. You know?
Right. And I didn't know, also another thing as far as like cost effectiveness goes, you skip the injections once a week.
Right.
And then also, you skip your cycle. And so it's like if you order around, you can actually really extend
You put it
depending on how much your dosage is.
right.
I actually am only taking 110.
Oh.
But I never would have known that I could, control that. So I did watch your video on dosing. And so I did start at the typical 125, 120 is what I started at actually. Oh, 150. I'm sorry, 150.
150.
Yeah. And I was, and so then I just went down and then down. And then when I wasn't hungry anymore, I just stopped. So 110 was like my perfect, little scale.
That's
Um, yeah, and I wouldn't have been able to do that with drops or pellets. So thinking that way, I would have had to remain hungry because what you can't have 7 drops or 2 pellets instead of 1 pellet or whatever, I mean,
that's kind of what I try to tell people because there are actually prescription pellets even
yeah,
but they're large it's like one big old pill and 500
yeah,
IU. And
yeah,
so I usually try to recommend the same thing that the injections, you have so much control over the dosage, and those small changes really make a difference.
yeah,
And you lose that control, yeah, with the
right,
pills. I mean, for I found for very heavy people, it tends to work like that dosage seems okay, but then as you get lighter, you're gonna need to lower the dose. So usually switching to
yeah.
injections. I'm curious if you could just share with your dosage and how you figured out how to reduce it and how you felt at each level. Could you explain that a little bit, maybe?
For this round?
Yeah, with that
Oh,
150 to the 110.
okay. Yeah, I
Like,
have
how
like
did you feel?
yeah, I keep a calendar. So like I bought off Amazon like a small calendar that you can stick to your fridge and write on.
Yeah.
And then that way I can just write, today I had today I had 150, and then I was like, oh, for like a few days, and I was
And you felt
feeling,
hungry still.
yeah, and normally, after coming off a load, especially I 3-day loaded for this round,
Okay.
and especially after that, I normally am totally fine. Like
Gotcha.
I think the last 2 times I loaded 3 days, I was like, oh, I'm not even hungry. I have no cravings, and I just go straight in and I'm fine. And it was about day 4, I was hungry, and I knew something wasn't right, and so I watched the dosing video, and I mean previous to that.
Yeah, and were you hungry like later in the day or earlier in the day or just kind of all day at
No,
that
I
point?
woke up starving,
Gotcha.
and then
Like I was
like
starving
really
all
hungry.
day.
Yeah, like hey, I had hCG more than 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
So then, then I woke up and be like, okay, well, I'll take my dose. And then, I would, have my apple and coffee and things like that. And then I would be hungry a little bit later. So it would, maybe 6 hours later, I would be hungry, like that stomach feeling like it's eating itself,
Distracted. Just yeah.
Yeah. And so then I decided to change the dosage. I went down, quite a bit. I think I went to like 130.
Yeah.
And then I was feeling better, but I still was having hunger. And I knew from the other successful rounds that I'd had that this wasn't what I should be feeling like.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be feeling hungry because that's hCG's job
Right.
in this protocol. And so if I do my part, hCG will do its part. So yeah, so then I moved down to 120, and I was on to 120 for about 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
And then I moved down to 110 after I started feeling the same.
Gotcha. So 120 felt good for a while.
Yeah.
You needed
And
to,
then after about 10 pounds, then it was,
which
yeah.
happens. That's kind of happened to me too. I had to reduce during my round because of the weight loss. And the other thing that I was thinking, it's because this is actually a very common misconception when people are hungry on hCG, a lot when they're new to the protocol. A lot of times they think they need more hCG to make
Right.
the hunger go. I actually just replied to a Facebook comment about that last night. They're like, "Oh, they said I should lower the dose," but I'm like, "How could that help?" And it's like, actually, that is often what exactly
Yeah.
will help. And here's the article because yeah, it's both too much and too little. For those of you guys who don't know, will cause that same hunger sensation. And the article she refers to, you guys can find it at hcgchica.com/dosage, and that will kind of go into detail because sometimes it's hard to tell. Like, do I need to go up or down? Like, so there are some little indicators to help you kind of figure it out. Sometimes it's still a little bit of a guessing game, but once you do get it dialed in, usually you can go from there for future rounds and then like adjust as needed from there, which is nice. Helps you get it quicker,
Right.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention too, I'm not sure how many people are aware of this, but when you get RX hCG from compounding pharmacies, there's actually a range that's allowed in the potency. Like when they make a batch of it, it's not going to always be exactly 100% potency. So like in a 5,000 vial of IU, it could have 4,900 IU and it could actually have 5,100 IU. Like, because the potency, there's a little, because these people are making it. It's really being made by a person. So
Right.
there's a little bit of a range that's allowed legally, and usually that's between like 90 and 110% potency. So that's the other reason why sometimes you might find yourself, like in your case, you needed like a lower than average dose. It's possible that you did need that, or it's possible that in reality the dosage was just a little higher than you thought you were taking, because the potency might have been a little bit higher than usual in that batch. So that's why it's just good to go with how you feel with your hunger and make those adjustments as needed.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely.
that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. Now you also was it you who mentioned this or someone else? I've talked to so many people. Did you
Okay.
mention anything about muscle, like your feelings about muscle retention when it comes to injections in homeopathic, or was that someone else?
So I actually, I guess I had noticed more when I was doing other diets, like when I was doing like a lot of other like the point system diets and things like that.
That's right.
That was where I felt like I definitely had like bingo arms after I was done,
I see.
or just totally like and just very saggy.
I see.
And I mean the first time I had done that I was way younger, so. I was like 19 or something. And so, if you lose a bunch of weight, it's like, oh, your body should just snap back, but it didn't
Mm,
because of the way that the starvation basically. Whereas, yeah, for this, I feel definitely this round, has been king. I mean, I know that when I did my first round, I had awesome results and I was able to go just right into the gym. And it was great. And I'm not going to say I picked up back where I was because I didn't,
Yeah.
but definitely was able to like still feel strong.
Yeah.
And then I think a couple of the rounds in there, I definitely was felt a little more weak.
Yeah.
And this one, I've just made sure that I've actually committed to move once a day, and then I do one yoga class once a week. So I think I honestly think that the RX
Yeah.
helps with that. But I'm also a person like personally who doesn't do well with phytoestrogens. So
Mm,
like soy, I can't drink like a whole lot of soy and things like that.
yeah.
So I think that the homeopathic, even though it did work for me for what it was meant to do, it probably wasn't best for my system just because I know I have those issues.
Sure.
So I was happy to move on to something and I would say, if you know that you feel if you feel that way, and you feel like, hey, I don't do well with certain birth controls or soy or any of those different things, certain essential oils or whatever. Just to be aware, that it might be better for you to go with something that's built off of human hormone.
Right. No,
So
that's a good point you bring out. Like, because I have seen it to be pretty individual, with
yeah,
people's opinions on how different things went for them. Although a lot of us have not had the benefit of doing both types to be able to
right,
compare.
right.
But yeah, so that's interesting feedback. Well, why don't you talk a little bit now? Well, first of all, how long have you been maintaining? And then we'll talk about just how you became overweight and maybe that other diet you did, and we'll
Okay.
go from there. Yeah. So how long have you been
Yeah.
maintaining?
Okay, so I guess about 2 years.
Yeah, so
Something
you
I'm trying
started,
to.
you actually did your first round back in 2011, right? It's
Yes, I
actually, I
did.
did my
Yeah.
first round. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It's so funny that I didn't find you until so much later. So I was like, we could have just totally been like little,
Yeah.
like blown out on
Our
on
own
the
little
island.
spheres came together. So
So
you did some rounds and you lost some weight and then you maintained that for a couple of years about, is that right?
yes. So I definitely basically would lose and then maintain a tiny bit higher, and then so I would say, I did my rounds, but I waited probably a good few months before I would start doing, a round again. So I wasn't leading, and I know a lot of people lead in and then go right back in again.
Right.
But I actually did wait out the weeks. So if it was like said 6 weeks, and I waited 8, 9, 12. Um, so yeah, so I did that. So that was what between like 2011, and I think 2013, 14. Because I remember being hCG on the holidays is so hard. I don't recommend that for anybody. Yeah, so then I would say 2013 would be when 14 would be when I was able to be solid at I think I ended at 150
That's
150,
great.
and then was at
And
155.
two
So yeah,
years is, I mean,
years.
that's quite a long time to be maintaining in a range, at a healthier range
Yeah.
for you. And I just have to add this in here for you guys because I know we all get like antsy to lose all the weight we want to lose, and I'm constant, and I remember feeling that way too. I remember my husband's actually the one who stopped me from doing a round right after my failed third round. Like I was ready to just like jump back on and try to fix the problem right away, and he was the one that was like, I don't know if this is the best idea. And not all of us have someone to tell us that, so then we'll do it. But I do feel like those who end up actually maintaining more long term, it seems like those are often the people who take longer breaks between their rounds, and I feel like it allows your body to stay stable. I don't know if you agree with that, but just like because I love hCG, but I think it is an extreme protocol, and any type of weight loss is going to take work for your body. It's going to be taxing on your adrenals, right? So it's like if you do something that's a little bit rough on your body, like back to back, and never give it a chance to kind of recover and be strong, I feel like it's going to make it harder later to maintain because now your body is in a compromised state, when it comes to hormones. And those breaks are just so essential for that. I feel like that's how I benefited by those long breaks.
Yeah, and it definitely helped me to settle in, as far as mentally,
Yeah.
to settle into, because I think people think, oh, I'm done with P2 now. I'm done. Or I can't wait to go to this awesome, Italian restaurant when we're on P3.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what? No. It's like you can't think like
This is
that.
where
You have,
pasta is.
yeah, right? You're like, because you guys have zucchini pasta, right? And you're like, no. But so it's like you just have to keep continuing that. And so for me, I definitely have to put a date on P3 and P4 because otherwise it's easy to like kind of let yourself slip and then be like, oh, now I need to do this again. And if you've messed up, then you want to do P2 again
Right,
and you want to do it sooner.
right.
Um, but yes, definitely give yourself time. Like you need time.
Yes, yeah, it can be hard, but it's really worth it in the end, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like your diet.
Yeah. How about you talk now about just how you came to be overweight and your struggles with that? And you kind of have a
Yeah, sure.
pretty heart-wrenching story to share that probably ties in with that, but just tell your story.
Yeah. So I grew up with in a home that, food was love. And a lot of times, you see marketing on TV and it totally is that. It just was like such a big thing for us to come together and all eat together. I talked about those mega meals. But my mom owned Mexican restaurants and we ate a lot as children. And so from about third grade on, I just like gained weight. Just all of a sudden was a really heavy child. And that went through till about high school when I decided to do Weight Watchers. And at the time, there was like the point system that you would do. And you could have, say, 25 points throughout the day, but you could eat whatever you wanted. And, I'm a teenager. I'm going to eat Doritos and,
Yeah.
Subway. So it wasn't the healthiest. And I definitely I lost 60 pounds. So almost as much as, I guess I lost almost as much as I have with
Yeah.
hCG, but I definitely, I felt like, oh, I'm so healthy. And I was able to maintain that for a while and life sort of went on. But definitely in my mind, knowing that I wasn't on like a healthy path. I was just skinny fat,
Gotcha.
basically.
Yeah.
So, um, and then our family had this basically tragedy happen to us. My sister was murdered by her fiance, and
Still couldn't
it
believe
was
that when you said that, like in the email, I was like, what? Like that's just
yeah, it's hard to even say because you're like, oh my
happens to
God,
other
like that
people,
happened.
you know?
Yes,
Me.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, and it's even still those shows that, those like murder shows that, and like, I don't know what they're called, Snapped and all those. Like, I can't watch those because I feel like I'm like, I went through this. I don't want to, it just
Yeah.
is such an odd thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say after about 16 months of struggling in court and traveling cross country because she didn't live with us, it was tough, and our family had to make a lot of realizations. And in that time, I think, a lot of our family fell apart, even though we were together.
Yeah.
So we, after picking back up the pieces after the court, everything was over, I felt like I just like woke up and was not at all a person that I knew myself as. And that including, I was going out with friends a lot. And I had gained an enormous amount of weight in such a short amount of time. And you see pictures of me previous to the trial and then afterwards, and it's like, oh my gosh, this only happened in this span of time. So it's pretty incredible, if you are under a lot of stress, how easy it is to just gain weight and to go for the first thing that are going to help what you feel at the time to like nurture your pain or, your hurt or whatever it is. So yeah, that's that. And it just, and then with all of that stress, I had been dating somebody for quite a few years, about 5 years, and he couldn't handle it. I mean, I don't blame him. We're friends now, but it's hard for somebody to take that on.
Super.
So yeah, definitely. So we ended our relationship, and I talked to a friend about, well, I don't know what to do now. I mean, all this transition in just 2 years was really hard. And so she said, I wonder if you would want to do this cleanse with me, this lifestyle change, as she calls it, because she hates calling things diets.
Yeah.
And because the first three letters are die, I guess, I don't know, or something like that. Some saying she has. But anyways, I did that with her. I went to the compounding pharmacy and I purchased that, and it definitely felt like once I started it and once I read over the protocol, I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds really tough, but I think from where I was coming from, everything was so chaotic that to look at something and be like, oh my God, this is regimented.
Like
and
structure.
Yes, it's a structure. And I just I just completely threw myself into it. I was 110%. And so that, I think, I don't want to say that it like saved me, but I mean, it definitely did lead me down a different path where I think I could have spent a little bit longer being destructive or depressed or, things like that. So yeah, just super grateful that
That's
I found
amazing.
it.
So the cleanse was hCG. Right?
Yes,
So
the cleanse was HCG.
yeah,
Yeah,
I know. It seems like it gave you something to focus on to kind of.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
I was actually
And
just listening to this is a little unrelated, but it was a podcast about this guy who quit playing video games because he was addicted to it, and how he overcame that addiction. And it was about wait, I just lost my thought. What did you just say?
oh,
No, I had a point. What was my
it's
point?
good. The video game. What did I just say?
Yeah,
That
before
we were
that, because I lost my thought. There was a point to that.
how I could have gone down one path, but then I found this and it took me down a different path. No?
Yeah, no, that was good. Oh
Oh,
my word! That's the Lyme disease. Okay, I'm so sorry. This is why I'm not as active in
that's
my
okay.
blog anymore because I literally just like can't even. I have no idea why I brought that up. It was something about how he overcame his addiction and how it was kind of similar, but I don't remember the point. This is so sad. Okay.
Okay, we have fun.
All right. Well, anyway, but thank you for sharing that. Because I mean, I can't honestly think of anything as horrific as that, as what you've gone through. But no matter what, we've all gone through something, and for us at that moment, it's really bad, even if it's maybe not as bad, in comparison to someone else. But
Right.
it's what
Still,
we're having to
yeah.
deal with,
Right.
how to get past that,
Oh yeah,
So,
definitely. I'm always like weddings and funerals. Like those are the two that are like bring out the best and the worst in people.
yeah.
You never know, like they're like stressful moments in life.
Yeah, totally. I know. I remembered what it was. Okay, with the video game guy. So
No,
for
yeah,
him,
totally.
the thing that helped him to get over his addiction was he went and got a job and he had structure in his life. Because before that, he kind of like quit high school and he just literally gamed all day, or like 16 hours a day.
Okay,
And he had
yeah.
nothing he had to do. He had no schedule in his life at all. And he said when he got the job, it gave him just enough structure in his life because he said eventually he quit the job. It was just like a retail job. He didn't actually love the job much. It's not the job itself that helped him, but just having enough structure in his life helped him to start coming out of it, because his was also, he had a depression he was dealing with. So
Right,
it was
yeah.
like an escape, so he didn't have to think, but it gave him just enough structure that he was able to start kind of doing other healthy things and start figuring out who he was in his life, so
Yeah, and living life, right?
right.
Totally, just like outside of things that so many times it's not just like, oh, only video games. Just a lot of times people can be consumed by things
Yeah,
and stop living life. So
yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's true that sometimes that structure can help. That's good. So, with you had mentioned earlier with doing like the point system and other weight loss, you felt like maybe not as much of it was fat because you felt a little bit more
Oh
flabby
yeah.
or whatever.
Oh yeah. No, me and my friends had this. It's so funny, but so we call it. I would go, Jimmy, Jimmy, I won the bingo, Jimmy. And I would shake my arm in the air, and then I'd run after my friends, Jimmy, and they're like, oh my God, like your arm. They're like, why did you do that to yourself? But so it definitely, because a lot of my friends were like, well, you should have just worked out, and it's like, well, yeah, duh. I mean, everybody says that, just work out and eat right. I mean, thanks, Dr. Phil. So. But my arm, yeah, so my arms were definitely just really bad. I would say I only had maybe the top muscle. I think my tricep had probably
Just gone.
completely atrophied. Yeah, I don't think I ever used it. The other to grab my backpack for school.
Yeah.
I mean, and then my like pancake butt, and then I was also having back problems, which I went to a doctor, and she said that a chiropractor, and then they had like a massage therapist there, and she had gone to Bastyr, which is a school, like a holistic school in our area, and she had said that because of how fast I had lost weight,
Yeah.
and it had atrophied, it put stress on my back because you're no longer, your gait is no longer natural, and your body starts to tighten up to try to protect itself.
Interesting.
So yeah, that was a huge thing, and I would have to say that like since I've been on the protocol, I've never had back problems, but that was a pretty bad one. I mean, I thought I might have to be on some sort of like pain management type of situation because it was get up in the morning, back hurts, sit down, back hurts, and I just had to work. I had to end up working out and doing like physical therapy.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a toll. It took a toll on my body. It basically was starving. I think I probably would have got to the same if I would have had popcorn and Diet Coke.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it definitely was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that's good that you mentioned that. And just to kind of go into more detail,
yeah,
Bella had some body fat testing done before she started hCG, and then she's had a follow-up test in the middle, and then now she just had another one. And so I wanted to just talk about this briefly. And also I was thinking, no doubt, with the way that you did the Weight Watcher protocol, like you
right.
said, like with the points, it's like you used them all up on a Taco Bell taco and
Yeah, one
something like
Taco Bell
that. Like you
taco.
wasn't doing anything. You probably even did lose more muscle than like the average person doing Weight Watchers, possibly,
Yeah,
right? Because you just
right.
because there is definitely a healthier way to do that protocol. Um,
Yes.
but you
Yeah. So I
teenage
was the
parents,
worst way. Yeah, I was a
yeah, we all
teenager.
do stupid stuff when we think
Yeah.
we're invincible. That's the thing.
Oh,
That's what I
totally.
remember thinking. Like
Yeah.
nothing can get me.
Yeah.
um,
I'm fine.
yeah, so but just to add to that, because you guys know that I am big on body fat testing, and so the technician that's done most of my body fat tests, these people test people all day, every day, and he says that typically when he tests people who've done Weight Watchers, that they have their weight loss is 50-50, meaning 50% of their weight loss is fat, and then 50% is typically muscle. Um, Now, if you compare that to like all of my results with hCG, and I'm going to share Bella's now in a second, and as well as a couple of my other interviews, our ratios of fat loss are quite a bit higher. And this is on a much lower calorie diet as well. So to me, I feel like that really proves that the hormone, it's doing something. It's not a placebo. It is protecting your muscle. And I'm going to show this on the screen for you guys to see here as well. But basically, so your first test you did the bod pod, right?
I did
And then her
quad.
other two were hydrostatic. So, but it's very close to being the same. So your fat was originally almost 41%,
Yeah, it
40.9.
was 40.9. Yeah.
And for her, that equated to a little over 82 pounds of fat on her body. Her total weight was 215. So she had about 88 pounds of fat and 127 pounds of lean. And 40% body fat is considered obese. It's very unhealthy. I'm gonna put it on the screen for you guys, like in a better way than this. But yeah, like it says, risky, high body fat if you have over 40%. So, and mine when I started, I think was 34, which is also considered obese. So that was interesting. And then you did your follow-up test before this last round, right, or something like that in
Yeah.
January.
Yeah, I did one. Yep, I did a prior, and I wanted to make sure they were the same. So it was the hydrostatic January.
That's
Yeah.
great. So tell us what percentage you were at in January and then now.
In January, my body fat percentage was 31.9, and then it's 27.2 now.
So this is a big deal, and because sometimes you think like, oh, like it doesn't sound like, oh, 8%, what's that? This is a big deal because we're not talking out of 100%. So, because like sometimes we think out of like, because we tend to think in like 100% and then, like that. So then an 8% sounds like it might not be a lot. But we're talking about out of 40%, like her body fat at 40, we're talking about an 8% drop out of 40. So that's a huge, huge amount. And so like when I calculated out, you've lost how many pounds of fat total now?
So for all my rounds,
I have
or
here for you. I have
oh,
statistics. I'm all writing all over your test. Like, oh,
you
this
tell
she
me.
caused this. I'll tell you.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you lost 47.5 pounds of fat.
Okay.
So that's like
For my whole rounds, right?
out from the beginning to the end.
Yeah. Oh my
That's over
God.
half of your fat is gone. Over half of it. And yeah. And then like just to give you guys an example, her since we're talking about how much of her weight loss was fat, how much was muscle, because to me that's a big deal. I feel like that's a great indicator of how well you'll be able to maintain, of what type of metabolism you're going to have later. So just this past round, she lost her, between testing anyway, was 16.2 pounds. 12.4 of that was fat and only 3.8 was muscle. So for her, that was 77% of her weight loss was fat. And that's a fantastic ratio. Yay, Bella. Let's all clap for Bella. And this is not abnormal, you guys. This is like when you do at least RX, unfortunately, I haven't seen anybody do testing yet that does homeopathic. So it's harder for me to know because they haven't been doing the testing. But um, this is totally normal with RX injections to have that type of change, to have your fat loss be 70 to 90%. And just to clarify as well, like pretty much with any diet, you're never going to lose like 100% fat. And one of the reasons for that, which is I was explaining this to Bella too, because when I first did this, I didn't know about all this stuff. And so it's like when I saw any muscle loss, I thought like, oh, does that mean it's bad? Because I lost a pound of muscle. But the reality is when you gain weight, you do not gain only fat. You gain fat and some muscle because you have to walk around, right? You have to carry all that extra fat. So your body requires more muscle to do that. So I had showed Bella, I have this book. It's kind of an old book. It's talks about like not eating fat and stuff, which we all know is not what we do anymore, but it's called The Fitter Fat Woman. But what is really cool about it is that she had a hydrostatic body fat testing facility, and she tested thousands of patients, and she was able to design a table based on all the testing she did on all these women that shows what the normal amount of lean body mass is for a woman of various heights. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll put it on the screen later, like larger. But so like Bella, she's 5'7", right? And on the chart it says, I hope I'm not boring you guys. This is important stuff. So on the chart it says for a woman that's 5'7", most women her height will have anywhere between 90 and 105 pounds of lean body mass. So Bella, when she started, when she was over 215 pounds, she had 127 pounds of lean body mass. That's like over 20 pounds more than the highest that a woman of her height would have. So her body had excess muscle to carry her extra fat, because it's not like you were like doing deadlifts and back squats, right? That's not why you had the extra muscle.
Join
right?
the football team.
Because
No.
that could be another reason too. Like I have a lot of muscle for my height, but that's because I weightlift.
Right.
So
yeah.
So when you lose weight initially, you're gonna lose some. Well, that's the whole point I'm trying to get to here, is that it is normal to lose some muscle when you lose weight. It's just that it shouldn't be a lot. And so her ratio is excellent, and because that's really the number one thing people, they get very worried or nervous about the hCG diet because of the 500 calories, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, it's a starvation diet, you're losing a ton of muscle. But this type of testing really makes it clear. She lost 77% fat on her last round. That is amazing, So that kind of shows you that the hormone is protecting her lean body mass. So, and I'm going to show all of these tests, you guys. You can go look at them in more detail on the blog as well. This is episode 35, so you can see that under success stories. But anyway, I just wanted to bring all that out because that's a big deal. When you lose weight, you wanna keep as much muscle as you guys can, So thank you for sharing all that and letting me share. I get all excited by that stuff, you can tell. Okay, so let's move on. Why don't we talk a little bit about just your experience with phase 2, like the first week? Was it difficult or easy as it progressed? Were there any difficult points or no?
Yeah. You mean like in general throughout all my rounds?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I definitely noticed, like, I feel like I'm like, RX, go RX, but I crave less. I definitely did notice this round, I wasn't craving hardly anything. Like a lot of times, I'll go out to dinner or something and somebody will be like, oh, do you want a glass of wine? It's like, oh, I can trade my fruit out for my glass of wine or whatever. That like never works. Or, like a stall for like 2 days. So, but I think that it just made it easier for me to be like, no, I'm fine. I don't know. It was just a difference, and it could have been totally mental. But for me, I definitely craved a lot less this round. I also prepped a lot. I would say after all of my previous rounds, I know to prep now. So prep a lot of my, like, I do hard-boiled eggs, and I weigh out all my meat and things like that. And I'll do that like once a week. And I
Oh,
feel like
so
that
once a
helps.
week you just weigh out 100-gram portions of protein and then cook it
Yeah.
all at once, or do you put it in the freezer, or what do you do?
So yeah, so I'll take a little piece of Ziploc and I'll put it on the scale and then I'll put however much meat, to weigh out. And then I'll wrap it up and like twist both sides and then I stick it into a Ziploc bag. And I do that with maybe 20 portions and then I put it in the freezer.
Cool.
And so it looks like, I don't know, like a bunch of little tiny, pieces of
And
chicken.
they're raw still.
They're raw,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And so then I buy it, I don't buy it frozen, I buy it
Yeah.
just from the market. And then when I need it, I just set it out into the, like an ice bath. And then I cook, prep or whatever. And then I add my chicken.
Awesome. Yeah, because it probably defrosts really fast because it's very
Because
small.
it's so tiny. No, it does.
The
It's
one
the best.
upside to it,
Like
so
it's
small.
done. Yeah, it's not like a big bag of chicken. Um, so yeah, so I'll do that. And I do that with shrimp, steak. I'll like cut it up like and then do different sections. One big chunk of steak is such a pain to try to like even out the right size, and then when you get it, it's like this big.
Yeah.
So so yeah.
Oh.
But that's basically how I prepped and if people don't have time for that, I know a lot of my friends will go to Costco and they'll get those bags that are like already chopped white meat up. Have you seen those?
I don't think I have. Cool.
But they'll do that and like just put it on their salad if they're like in a hurry or things like that. But as far as my rounds, I always like determine them by city because I lived somewhere different almost every time I did a round. So I'm like, this is my Oregon round was one, Seattle round two, like so just like where I was living. So but my first round was definitely difficult because I was living at a friend's house and for the summer and but I was 100% in this cleanse and I just didn't have a lot of resources. I mean, I only had my internet on my phone. And so it was one of those things where it's like you always have questions, and you go to a forum and it's really easy to get lost in there with all these different things. And people are like, no, I do this or I do that and I do this, and you gotta just kind of pick one. Because for me, I end up just like stressing out, like I'll lose hair. I mean,
Right.
because it's like,
Well, because you
what am
can't
I
find the right answer because some people said this worked and then some
right.
the complete opposite worked. So then you're like, I don't know what to do.
Right. And then you're like, I drove 20 minutes to buy this dressing and it's not the right one and I can't have it. So now I'm just eating lettuce, like, or I'm just going to eat it because I bought it, whatever. You like freak out. One of two things happens. But so yeah, and either way, people are always like, oh, P2 isn't for me, it's not the hardest. I love it because I do enjoy that structure because like I said, after coming off of something that was so hard, such a hard time in my life and coming to something fully structured, it's like, somebody's already worked this out for me,
Yeah, like a few
all I have
decisions,
to
right?
do, all I have to do is follow it.
Yeah.
I do get bored with some of the food, but like that's part of the, like the creative fun for me. And that's like part of the reason why I did the culinary hCG.
Yeah.
But yeah, and just trying to keep it interesting for myself and cook for myself and I don't entertain a lot. I try to, like you were saying, prepare, try not to be like, oh, I have girls night every Friday. Be like, well, it's not going to be at my place and I'm bringing my own food. So you guys don't have to worry about, not being.
Don't bring your M&Ms to my house.
Not being able to eat. No, they know. I'm like, Twizzlers, get out of here.
Yeah.
So, but in general, I really feel that my P2s went really well, and then my P3s are always. I think that's probably what you hear a lot. The P3 is just kind of like a little harder because what do you add in, what do you not? Then you have that thought in your brain where I can go to Italian food, and you really can't in P3. It's not over. The run's not over. You're halfway through the marathon.
Please just bring me a brick of cheese.
Yeah, like I can have cheese now.
Pasta.
Yeah, like olives. I was like, what?
There you go. Yeah, maybe spaghetti. Even spaghetti sauce, they had sugar too. So.
Yeah, ketchup. I had to get sugar.
Like really good spaghetti sauce has sugar.
Oh yeah.
That's how you know. If it's really good, then you know it has like at least 6 or 7 or 8 grams of sugar. I'm like, this is too good. Maybe you could share a little bit about, because you do Rogue. Rogue, you guys, for anyone who doesn't know, means slightly or more than slightly, it just depends, off protocol. So we all know that there's Dr. Simeon's original protocol, which had a certain list of foods, and that still, I mean, that definitely totally works. But as time has gone on, more people have experimented with different foods, different amounts of foods, and so some people have found that hey, they still did well overall. I am I am more into listening to people who've made changes that have had the body fat testing done like Bella has, because that makes me feel confident that the changes she made didn't hurt her fat loss results. So I'd love to hear you talk about some of the off protocol foods you ate, or just what did you
Oh
do,
yeah,
so people
yeah.
kind of know what their options might be.
So I would say that my general rule for myself is 100 grams of protein, 100 grams of veggies. And the reason I do that is because, I mix veggies for one,
Yeah.
which a lot of people don't. Because if you try to weigh out 100 grams of like spinach, you're gonna eating a lot of spinach.
Yeah.
So, like, just like this is my salad, baby. Can't even see yourself over it. So I mix, and I do like a handful, and so I will put like a little, I'll weigh it, just a little container. I'll put all of everything I plan to use, and then I it makes it easier for me. It's like I'm still, partitioning food, and I'm still have that kind of organization that I love so much, but without it being like too crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, for salads, celery, tomatoes, different things. So generally I stick with mainly green veggies. I do eat cauliflower once in a while.
Yeah, so that's an off protocol food.
Yeah, so that's a roast. Yeah, I
Yeah,
do
just
broccoli.
curious what particular foods you eat that are off protocol, for in case
Okay.
you're wondering.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cauliflower.
So cauliflower, yeah. Broccoli is generally people will say yes or no, but I say no, it's rogue.
Yeah,
Um,
it is. It's not on the original. Okay, broccoli.
and then I do, I'm pretty, what is it? 0%, like Faye or Skyer is actually another one that me and my friends are like hooked on now. It's Skyre, I believe.
Cool.
It's
That's Greek yogurt, right? Or thick
It's
yogurt.
Icelandic yogurt.
Cool.
So it's way thicker. It's got almost a custard consistency to it. So it feels so much more rich, but it's exact same um, like breakdown
Nutritional
as
profile.
0%. Yeah, thank you.
And how much of that would you eat? Was that eaten to replace something or in addition, or
So if I do dressings, I usually add
a little bit?
Greek yogurts, yeah, or things like that, and kind of shake them up. Because think about it, even if you make a jar that's dressing that's 8 ounces, and you're only using a fourth of a cup, you're really only using like maybe a teaspoon, or like not, a teaspoon of that.
Very insignificant.
So yeah, to me, those things make it so much tastier, I guess. So much easier to eat the food and be happy with it, and have fun with it. So,
That's true. There was a, sorry to break in. There was a, just speaking of that, when I used to make asparagus, like kind of blended up asparagus soup on P2, and I would add just like one little dollop of Greek yogurt, the fat-free Greek yogurt, and I swear that completely
yeah,
took the taste to this heightened
yes,
place where
yes,
it was so much yummier, and it was just a teaspoon, like it was
yeah,
real
yeah.
insignificant, and it made a huge difference in the taste. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll do that with my tuna sometimes. Like if I am in a hurry and I'm eating a can of tuna or a pouch of tuna,
Yeah.
I'll put one dollop and I'll stir it in, and mustard, and that's kind of my like replacement for mayonnaise.
Yeah, awesome.
It's kind of tastes the same.
Cool.
So
That's really cool.
so I do that.
Very cool.
And then I put it on veggies, and that way, they all kind of blend in together, and it's good. So, zucchini I do also,
Zucchini. Okay.
because I use zucchini noodles, and God bless shirataki noodles, because I do those too.
Those are so good.
So
Really help.
I know they definitely do, and I would say I probably do like half a pack. I don't eat a whole pack, but then I do veggies with, because so it's almost like a pho or something, like a Vietnamese pho or something like
Nice.
that.
Awesome.
So yeah, definitely that, and just trying to find alternatives. Like I saw somebody post. Really wish I could remember off the top of my head, but it was like a tortilla that was made out of cauliflower. Things like that, where it's like, oh my gosh, I really want to film myself making this, so it can be like the epic fail video, because I always try to do things like that, and it's like this is what really happens when you try to a Pinterest video.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just getting creative, I guess, and making it interesting.
That's cool. And when it comes to like the fruits, did you eat the fruits on phase two, or did you eat any off protocol
So
fruits, or?
I didn't do the grissini and I didn't do the melba, but I did do fruits. So I did blueberries.
Okay. So that's all
I did, yeah.
blueberries. Okay.
I did strawberry. I did orange and apple. Those are basically the ones that I stick with.
Okay.
Um, let's see. And I find that I do green tea, like matcha green tea.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's on protocol. I mean, it is a tea,
Yeah, I think matcha
but
tea is technically.
okay, yeah. I mean, it's like powdered.
Yeah,
So,
gotcha.
but other than that, yeah. No, I stayed pretty good.
That's cool. That's
Stayed pretty
awesome.
good.
No, that's good to share though. Yeah, because like the blueberries and the zucchini and the broccoli and the cauliflower, I mean, those are all things that were on the original protocol, but a lot of people are using them today. The nutritional profile is very similar. I had zucchini and broccoli on mine. I
Mhm.
had actually I had red bell pepper on my last round.
Oh,
I
okay.
wasn't eating
I ate bell
the fruits.
pepper.
Yeah, I wasn't eating the fruits though, but yeah, and then the Greek yogurt. Yeah, that's
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, so I do bell pepper and also I know you probably hear Walden Farms a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't use their dressings as much as I use like if I want to do like a barbecue sauce or they have a coffee, like a chocolate you can add to their coffee. So
Gotcha.
I'll do that once in a while. Those two are things I use. Um, and I find those to be you have to be careful of the sodium content in that kind of stuff
Yeah.
because the dressing, like if I make myself dressing, I don't put a lot of salt or if any. And then I look at that and it's like 30% of my daily value. I mean, that's pretty incredible. That could stall you, if you were having it for every meal,
Yeah.
a tablespoon or two
Yeah, or
comes out of the
still
bottle
water
kind of fast.
a little bit better. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, interesting. Now you mentioned because you wrote your answers out before, which I really appreciate. Um, you said that it's easy to cross into obsession with this diet at times. I was wondering if you talk about that a little bit because it's a good thing. We do that sometimes. We get a little bit crazy.
Yeah. So, I'm definitely a person who likes structure in the way that like sometimes variation just enough like can be really scary, right? So it's like if you quit a job and go to a different job, it's like, oh, no big deal. But if it's like we want you to do this job and a little bit of this job, you're like, like
Yeah.
so it's just like just totally different. It's
Yeah.
just weird to me. So just adding things in, on P3 can be sort of stressful to me. So like I have to plan things out. And as far as the obsession goes, I think it also might stem from, to get psychological here, it might stem from, not wanting to be overweight again.
Yeah.
You end up having that fear where you're like, oh my God, I'm looking back at how hard I worked, and this goes for everyone, I think, when you get to a certain point that you're proud of, that you really don't want to fall back down that hill. And because it's going to hurt, and getting back up is going to be twice as hard. So that, for me, it's hard not to get stressed about it for me, I guess, is what I mean, like where I can start to obsess. So, I think definitely focused so much more this round on just kind of like living slower, like not rushing myself at the grocery store, like, and just making my meals, knowing I need time to do that, and just not like obsessing as much. Obviously my protein I do weigh out and I have my protocol that I do for that.
Right.
But everything else I was just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna do this, like my veggies. Okay, here we go. Or they're good. You don't stress about it anymore. It's done.
Right.
So just keeping it like a certain level, because I feel like I'm like a terrier, like like a little rat terrier or something. You're like, normal people are right here, and I'm right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you do anything, then I'm up here, and then I like can no longer function with people
Oh
down
my
here.
gosh.
They're like, where are you? Who are you?
So funny.
So yeah, so just definitely, I have to just kind of step back and think about that, and just be like, hey, okay, you're getting a little, it's obsessed, or you need to kind of chill out.
Yeah.
So, or if my friends will remind me too, like they'll be like, oh, I mean, there's a difference between people criticizing the protocol and then actually like, in it for your own, hey,
Right.
you're being a little, I'm sure a couple more celery sticks aren't going to hurt you. I'm like,
Right.
okay, yeah, you're right.
Right. Yeah, no,
So,
it's true. And we can take anything to extremes. I was just actually, a gal emailed me. Um, she said she's willing to talk with me so that we can talk about the dark side of hCG dieting because she feels like her rounds, because of the way they happen, her coach sounds like he wasn't normal. But she feels like it made her anorexic actually because of all that happened. Unfortunately, what her coach considered to be a normal weight for her height was extremely low. It just
yeah,
got to this point where she felt like she was like, her whole value was dictated by the scale, and she was paranoid
right.
about everything she put in her mouth because there were so many rules. And so, yeah, we emailed back and forth just a little because we want to talk about that, how like anything can be taken to extremes, and then of course it defeats the purpose, of what you want to get out of this.
Right. Like health, right? You want to get
Yeah,
to a place where you're, where you're healthy and you're happy and you're able
yeah,
to actually, you can actually succeed through life in this way, right? It's
right.
not like you can't just continue to be on protocols and protocols and protocols. It's not like you're saying, it's not a lifelong
Yeah,
thing.
right.
Um, in 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 that same way, my sister actually had gastric bypass surgery. So my sister was obese, and she got pretty large, and she ended up finding insurance like across the country with some other place she worked, and she was able to get that surgery paid for.
Okay.
So that was a huge thing for her to go and do that. She knew she wanted to change her life.
Yeah.
So there's her and I talked about that psychology briefly. That people become, they're very overweight, they get gastric bypass, and then they become anorexic.
Wow.
And because the fear of that, it's like that's to them, they're so disgusted. It's so, I mean, they'll do anything they can to not get back to that point of where nobody wants you,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, definitely. I think that, if people are on the protocol and they feel like maybe they're at a spot, maybe they want, to get counseling or just talk to people about it. I mean, I have friends that are like, okay, you're being kind of weird, like, no, I'm not. Like, yeah, you look fine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're like
Yeah.
Skeletor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we know, like what you're thinking, right? It's like as a person, only each of us is gonna know. We know what we're thinking about all day long.
right.
It's like when it becomes that obsession where like even once you're done with hCG, if it's kind of like a constant thing in your head, then then it's not you're not in a healthy place yet. And it can take time. Like it took me quite a while to feel comfortable in my body. And I mean, for me, I think also possibly one of the good things um, is finding a way to work at keeping your body healthy in a healthy way. Because yeah, one way would be not eating, but at
Right.
some point that gets unhealthy.
Yeah,
Like you can't do that too often, so that
yeah,
becomes unhealthy. But that's actually something active that works towards like keeping you thin. But
yes.
it gets unhealthy. So, but for me, like with you guys hear me talk about CrossFit all the time. You're probably totally sick of it, but like with me with CrossFit, and I only do this 3 days a week, you guys. So I'm not, because there are also obsessive exercisers. I'm not an obsessive exerciser. I do 3 days a week,
Yeah, right.
but 1 hour each. But that is an active way for me to work at being healthy and keeping my body healthy and in a positive way. It makes me strong. It allows me to eat more because I've built muscle. And so instead of just, because sometimes we don't like to just be not doing something, like
Right.
it's like just doing nothing is kind of hard. So there's an unhealthy way to go about it and there's a healthy way to go about it. So actually finding that healthy way, and so
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think also for as far as exercising and stuff goes too, easing into that after, and definitely, when people are like, well, how can I get to a certain point? Well, a healthy body is a moving body. So, it's like you can't think I'm going to lose all this weight and then I'm going to keep it off if your body isn't, it needs a machine. It needs like an engine, you got to keep that going, and the body as a whole.
right.
So I always just think, keep moving, like even just a walk or like anything
No,
small. I mean, I have a dog, so like, she gets walks, and
that's awesome.
so those types of things. And if you're not a walker, I mean, also on P2, I did so many crafts. I like I don't even know how much money I spent on craft stuff.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you
because
found
I
ways to
just,
distract yourself from eating?
yeah, well, yeah, doing things that just weren't centered around food that I knew I enjoyed. And,
Right.
and so it was good. It was definitely, coming back to something like, hey, I like to sew, like I knew I like sewed my own overalls when I was like, I want to say like 9 or 11 or something. Yeah.
You still have them?
Oh my God, no.
That'd be so cool.
They had little corn buttons, like overalls,
Like
and
old
they're like,
country. How
yeah.
cute.
Oh, yeah. It was
I actually wear overalls. I've never sewed my own, but I do wear them.
No, I totally want a new pair. I just
Yeah.
don't want the checkered, corn ones that I had from when I was like 9.
Oh, it's
Although I could
cute.
probably get into
Yeah, you probably would. You
I
probably
probably
can.
could.
No, you're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny. I think that's actually a big thing. I kind of want to talk more about it with people is like what they do that's separate from food to change their life because I agree. I feel like making your life not about food, like by doing other things. Like you need to fill that empty space with something
Right.
productive. So that's
Yeah.
cool. So for you doing different crafts and sewing and stuff.
Yeah, and I actually talked to one of my yoga teachers, and then a personal trainer was saying, try to find one thing that you like to do each season.
Nice.
So whether you like to like snowshoe, and then you can like paddleboard in the winter, I mean in the summer. Don't paddleboard in the winter, please. In the, yeah, you're like in a parka, don't fall in. Yeah, so different, just like one thing that you'd like to do, because then that way, even if it's cost effective, like we don't have to go like skiing at Whistler, or I mean, like you don't have to do this whole endeavor.
Yeah.
It's just like small things, and that'll keep you moving, and it'll be fun for you and your family or friends or whatever. So
It's true. Yeah, and I feel like it's not just like the calories you burned while you exercised, it's more the headspace that it keeps you in, right? Doing
yeah,
that
yeah,
activity.
like happy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
that's awesome. Well, so we talked enough about P2, I think. I think
Hmm.
as far as like um maybe we can talk a little bit. You mentioned P3. Like, what types of stuff did you eat in P3, and then how did you transition into phase 4? Like, did you end up adding any carbs in, or maybe you could just talk about
Yeah.
that.
So what I did was, I basically, dairy is huge for me. I love dairy, and like, or I should say, I love cheese. Um, and so I wanted to start introducing cheese in P3 slowly, but I didn't want like, big handfuls of Mexican cheese, or.
Yeah.
So I went with sort of like a older like drier cheeses, like I think I want to say it's called Grana Padano, but like Parmesan,
Yeah.
things like that have a lot of like flavor, but they're not high in fat. So I went with a lot of those, and I would just do like a tiny little bit, like I have a little microplaner or whatever, and I just put a little bit over my salads. And after doing this P2, your palate is so much more sensitive. Like if you try to sneak a candy, you're like, oh, what is this? Or, oh my God, that's so salty. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so that was perfect for me. So I would make like a salad with chicken and just do a little bit of that. And then as far as introducing grains, I really, I don't love grains in general. Like, I mean, I do, but like, I don't like I love cake. Like, cake's great. Everybody likes cake. But
Like, if you're
I
not
like,
gonna have cake, then you're not gonna bother.
yeah, I'd be like, can I have cake, like a sandwich? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but I got to that point where I'm like, okay, I don't have to have bread if it's not exactly what I want. So unless it's exactly what I want, I don't
It's
really
like,
partake in it. Yeah, because then it's not worth the calories for me. It's like if somebody orders me a big birthday cake, I don't have to eat the whole thing. It's the same kind of thing for me. So, but as far as like, I would just say like new croutons in my salads and things like that, and just kind of keep it out.
yeah.
But when I did start doing bread, I would get like a pretty whole grain bread, and like sprouted grains, like things like that. Things that weren't, I mean, I wasn't just like straight to the Wonder Bread. I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know what would happen to me if I ate that. I'd probably have like instant IBS. Like
But you're able
instant.
to eat the whole grain breads, okay, without like gaining a bunch, or it's okay for you on occasion?
Yeah, I know, oh, I see what you're saying, what you're asking. So for me, I'm better with fats. And I actually kind of determined that as far as with my family,
Yeah,
and my mom is Hispanic and Native Indian.
yeah.
Sugar is actually there's a lot of studies that have been done with people of native descent and sugars,
Mhm.
and also like alcohols and things like that, how it processes in their body differently.
Interesting.
So for me, like my mom and our family being so close on like the brink of insulin issues.
Yeah.
I definitely I try not to eat. I know that about myself, so I just try not to. Like, if I was gonna get something and it was like a dessert, I probably would go with, the souffle, like a chocolate souffle or something I didn't would think didn't have very much grain, over like a bread pudding or yeah,
Cool.
like a higher fat. Yeah. So like I used to make when I was on P4 and I was what was I doing? I was lost my train of thought. Maintenancing in between rounds. I would make brownies, but I would make them raw brownies, so they were like dates and cocoa and things like that. And for the frosting, I would use avocado with cocoa and some honey.
Oh, cool.
And I never had gains from those.
That's
Obviously, I didn't eat the whole tray,
yeah.
but it was really, to me, it tasted awesome. It hit the spot,
Yeah.
and I didn't have to have any of the grains at all.
Greens. Cool. That's
I think it was walnuts, ground walnuts and dates
mm.
and stuff. And then you push it down, and then you put the.
I need you to come to my house. I need someone to like just be here and cook my food for me so I can just eat yummy food. And I don't know if you saw
Yeah,
my
right.
email yesterday or the other day, but yeah, about food. And I'm just like, I don't like spending time in the kitchen. It just really,
Yeah,
so I do cook, but it's super simple because I just want to get out of there as fast as humanly possible. But
right.
I appreciate and love if the food's made, like, and it's all complex and yummy, and I'll eat
Yeah,
it. It'd be awesome.
yeah.
That's too funny.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
I wanted you to ask about this because actually it was something that's different than me, because actually it's just what I just said. What have been your tools for maintaining your weight loss? Because I just thought, that's interesting how it just goes to show how different we all are and how you really do want to embrace whoever you are.
Yeah,
Yeah, so what have
definitely.
been your tools for maintaining that have helped you?
Yeah, so tricks like that, where if I want something sweet, like and I mean, we have Google now, right? So it's one of those things where if I can look something up, like I want something sweet, but I don't want grain in it or carbs in it at all.
Yeah, right,
Well, then that's where I find recipes like that.
right.
So that definitely, and then for me, I know actually, yeah, that you were just having this thing with the food prep, like for me
Yeah,
for success, whereas you're like, I can't because it's just too much.
I
Like,
know, it's so funny.
um, yeah, so like when I go to the grocery store, I either know I'm going to be putting things away or I know I'm going to be prepping. So that's sort of where I'm at with that. And I do a lot of my food prep right after I buy things.
Great. Yeah.
So that I can have things. And I'm such a like organizer when it comes to like tuppers and stuff. I have like the glasses of tuppers and everything. So I can see what's in each thing.
Great.
My mom doesn't, and it like drives me nuts. But like, God bless her for trying because
Yeah.
she has them organized. But I'm like, what's in this? What's in that? What's in that? Well, I don't know. Open it. I'm like, oh, I don't want to open all these. Get glass ones. So yeah, I organize like that, and I freeze a lot. I really should probably get like an extra freezer.
It's awesome.
I buy chickens whole and I break them down and then I freeze, whatever portions I need, and then my dog, gets the rest or bone broth or whatever. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at as far as maintaining, just keeping like myself in a rhythm. I think that works for me. Whereas other people, if I try to impose that on my friend who has to commute, to my soft every day,
Right.
she's like, I don't have time to do this. What am I cooking on the train?
Right. Yeah.
So, um, so definitely hers are like microwave shortcuts. I mean, she needs that. So everybody's so different. And so in her case, I tell her like, yeah, try chop prepping,
Mhm.
so that you can have stuff, or like saute a big, huge thing of vegetables. Or that's what I did. Actually, she was my roommate a year ago. And so I would put 2 trays of vegetables, and I would roast all these vegetables with different spices, and then we would know that they would be in the fridge. So even if she didn't have anything, she could just grab one of those containers, and that's it.
That's great.
So just as long as, like just having whole food and and being able to know it's there is always kind of nice. You open the fridge and it's not.
Yeah, and I agree. Like for me, definitely, even like keep things simple, I definitely always make more. Like I never make it just for one meal. Like I try to make sure that there's enough for a few
Yeah,
meals because that way
yeah.
I can just reheat it. And yeah, like with the veggies, that's so great. I thought it was interesting that you said when you wrote your answers, you said you eat healthier when you cook for and with other people.
I do.
And
I
I,
do.
oh my goodness, that is just so fascinating to me because I'm like the complete opposite. So
Really?
when you eat with people, you feel like you eat healthier or you feel better about your experience, or I want to hear about this.
I think I get a little like fancy pants. Like I kind of want to I kind of want to show them because I read a lot about food and food's like huge to me. I probably should have gone, done some type of culinary something, but
Seriously,
oh, I'm going into the environment, so it's
still
close
have
enough.
time. You're not
Yeah,
getting
right.
old yet.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, like having friends over and just, making a meal for them and like having them. My kitchen's pretty small, but just kind of having that it's sort of like a more higher quality food, but it's less of it.
Yeah.
So, but we're all, hanging out together and, sitting at the table picking pieces of the chicken off or, those types of things. Or, yeah, or if, hey guys, saw this new recipe and it looks pretty awesome. Do you guys want to make cauliflower pizza tonight? You're like, oh yeah, sure, we'll try it, so those kinds of things. And at the same time, you kind of you got to sell it, right? You want to come over and have only a salad? They're like, hell no. No, we don't. Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna eat before we come over.
So it sounds like for you, like when you cook and spend time and then have friends over to enjoy it, like it's almost like you're making your life less about food in a way because you're making it more about the experience or something. Is
Yeah,
that what
yeah,
it ends up
definitely.
being for you?
Yeah, and we talk and yeah, and just it sort of feels like when it was around the table when it was like in my mom's home where you're picking through beans and getting out, getting the stones out and stuff and
Aw.
talking and everything. And
Yeah.
so one friend's crushing garlic and I'm cutting this and we're all talking and, like some are drinking wine and, things like that. So
You
yeah,
actually
definitely.
find like a recipe and have your friends come over and like you'll all cook it together then, like that?
Well, yeah, like I'll have a recipe in mind, and then it'll be like, should I bring anything? Be like, oh, yeah, we forgot parsley, bring parsley, or things like that. So,
Awesome.
but it's usually pretty like impromptu and comes together. But I think in general, when you have, I mean, my friends are pretty open to it, and they never have come over and been like, ew, this is terrible. So it's not, luckily, like,
No,
luckily.
you seem like you're a really good cook, so that's awesome.
Haven't had that experience yet. Normally they're like, "Oh my God." And it takes time to make meals like that, but it makes it better when your friends are there. So, even if it goes in the oven 15, 20 minutes after they've been here, it's not like they're coming over, ding, food's ready, eat, get out.
All right.
They're hanging out for a few hours and it's like good conversation and catching up and those kinds of things.
That's great. No, I
So,
love hearing that, because there's definitely a lot of people out there that are like you too, and that's going to be their way to finding how to maintain and be around food in a healthy manner is like incorporating it in their life in a positive way. It almost seems like you took what you used to do with your family that ended up being an unhealthy way of eating and turned it into a healthy way of eating by doing it just slightly differently. Yeah.
yeah, it's one thing I think about too is there's this are you familiar with Michael Pollan?
Mm-mm,
He's a food writer.
mm-mm.
He has a it's a new like small show. It's only 4 episodes, but he's amazing and it's called Cooked.
Oh,
And I think there's been a lot about it recently, but there was a doctor on there, a food scientist actually, and he was saying that, tonight, go ahead, go home, you can have apple pie, you can have cookies, you can have, like he was saying, you can have all this stuff, but but you have to make it from scratch.
yeah.
And it's like, are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Well, no.
Yeah.
People aren't going to go home and make a pie, make brownies, make,
Yeah.
all cupcakes and everything and eat it all, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like really just, go home and like cook a meal for yourself that's like small and you can do it and it's healthy for you is a lot easier, and like healthier for you than going, to a store and buying all those things.
Right.
Because my friends could come over and they could go and stop at Whole Foods and get a pre-made Whole Foods tray and we could stick it in the oven, but it wouldn't be half as fun
Yeah.
as as having everybody come and work. So
That's awesome. No, that's really cool. No, I like hearing your feedback about that. Just so, they're all different. It's like for me, for whatever reason, the more time I spend on food, and especially when people are around, I end up overeating. Like I cannot help it. I don't know what it is. I get so distracted by everyone there that I mindlessly eat way more than I would have if no one was
yeah,
around. It's the weirdest thing. Like I know when my family comes to visit, that I need to be like extra strict like the week before, like with my eating, because I know that we're gonna talk and I'm gonna eat way more chips than I should have. Like it's just like because I get like I just can't focus on more than one thing at a time. And when I'm alone, I can easily control my eating. But then when people
yes,
get around, I'm like, oh, I'm talking and like, oh, I'm just eating and talking.
yeah,
And like 3 days later, I'm like, oh, I don't.
oh
It's so
yeah,
hard. I
oh
can't seem
yeah.
to control both.
Or you have five different people that are hungry at different times, so there's
That's
always food out.
true.
So you're like, oh, somebody's eating a sandwich, and then somebody's eating chips, and then somebody's doing this, and you're like, oh, I
Yeah, and
am, I am
careless. I just
hungry.
literally get careless. Yeah, it's just like, oh, sure, I'll grab some of that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But that's cool. It's cool to hear that. Well, I think we've covered quite a bit here.
Hmm.
I think,
Oh, you did ask me about a rogue treat, about
yes,
rogue stuff.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the other little rogue thing I do.
Is this for
Sorry, I was
P2
running over
or
that.
P3? Let's clarify.
This is, oh yeah, sure. This is for P2.
P2, okay, so this is a little rogue treat you do. Okay.
Yeah, I don't do there's chocolate delight or coconut delights or whatever.
Hmm.
I just do a square of dark chocolate, 70 or higher.
Okay. Yeah.
That's usually what I do.
Okay. Would you have that like every day or now and then or?
Yeah, maybe like every other day. Like if I'm gonna be closer to Tom, it's usually like every day.
Yeah.
Like sometimes twice.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that affect my losses at all. Um, but it's definitely, yeah, it's moderation. So.
Very interesting. That's good. And I also asked you about, you said you make some meal bars with P3 ingredients. What's in those? Do you have a recipe for that? Or maybe we can link to that or something.
I can definitely send you one. I don't have
Okay.
one right offhand.
Yeah, no, go ahead and send me one and we'll put it in the show notes for you guys
Okay.
under episode 35. Um, and then just to finish off, you mentioned that after doing 5 rounds, you found stabilizing your body is much easier when you eat clean, organic food. Um, And then you also mentioned something about a theory with your experience about getting past bad habits with hCG. Do you recall what that is? If not, I'll tell you.
Um, oh, looking at my thing. So,
I thought that was a good point.
oh yes, yes. So I was noticing this when I was on round 5 because I made a lot more hCG friends I guess this round, just because I was kind of put myself out there more.
Yeah.
And in my first couple rounds, I would I would go to like a fast food place, but I would get like if I was in a rush or whatever, and I would get a hamburger, but I would take the bun off,
Yeah.
and but I would eat that, right? And like that was my meat and veggies or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm very much more different now as far as what I put in my body, but I basically I feel like if you keep your bad habits like present or in mind, they're always going to be there. I guess if I was going to quote myself,
I think I said
it,
it best when I said.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, go ahead though, because you said it well. Go ahead and read
it's
it.
yeah, the more you try to keep past bad habits on hCG protocol, the more likely they are to come back and haunt you. And it's true because then, if you always have that, like, fast food is a huge problem for people. I mean, if you're overweight and you're eating a lot of fast food, that's probably not something that you should continue to do because it's not down the way that you're trying to go, right? So if you end up on hCG protocol, and fast food was an issue for you, I wouldn't recommend going to a fast food place just to get what is like might be on protocol a little bit,
Right.
like because I don't feel like a beef patty that you make at home, which I'm sure you could make it at home awesome, is the same as a patty
Yeah.
from McDonald's or whatever. So it's really quality over quantity, and then also that taste, being saturated in the fat and the salt and the chemicals. Once that leaves you, I feel like that is liberating for me when I'm on hCG.
For sure.
And so that was my main focus was, especially this time, was to stay organic with everything, which wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. I have a lot of farmers markets opening up around me, so it was good. And and buying large, like breaking down a lot of my own stuff, because that is cost also, if I got a big bag of breasts compared to a big chicken. So for me, those kinds of things. Um, but yeah, definitely, like if you keep yourself, just, I guess, just let yourself fly. Don't keep yourself back. Don't- with habits that I mean, even just to walk into a McDonald's and to order that would be, especially if people have food addiction, it'd be like you smell the fries, you smell the shakes, and you're going to order a burger, but you're going to take the bun off. Are you really going to take the bun off, So
Especially
yeah,
too, because like you said, it's like you might do that during phase two, but you, like you mentioned, I just thought it was a great point. The danger is once phase three comes, you're a
right.
lot more tempted to go ahead and add back in something that you,
Yeah, a little more, little
it's
more.
still kind of a habit of going into that place with the tempting foods. Now the restrictions not quite the same. So it's risky. That's
Right.
all. You're taking
It is,
risks.
yeah, you're on a fine line there when you do that, I think.
Yeah.
So it's easy to teeter over into it.
Yeah. Oh, I
So
really liked that point. Well, just to finish off, do you have any like parting words or advice for someone who is new to the protocol or who has struggled with it? Like, what would just be your top few things that you think are the most important to keep in mind, you think?
I would say, try to not stress, try not to stress with it. Um, Also, just sort of just embrace the process. I know that sounds so typical, but it is important, and embrace it in a way that you can, that it's going to work for you, because I mean, even after listening to this, if you're like, oh my gosh, she's so methodical and everything, or she packs all these things, I'm not like that. But you could think of, maybe ways that you could do it. Like even buying a bags of lettuce for you to have on hand would help you. So, or maybe, or other things, But yeah, definitely, not stressing it out, just trying to move a little bit slower. And I felt like that helped me to um, focus on nourishment from this protocol. Like, I mean, whether it be like, I mean, not to be chicken soup for the soul, but definitely like, nourishing yourself as far as like your body and your mind, and, who you are, and taking time to realize that. And like, hey, how did I get here? Things like that. So yeah, just when you're fully in it, it just, you have such better results, and you end up feeling, I think I end up feeling, definitely, like I completed something like amazing. You're like, oh my gosh, how did I not know this before about myself?
Yeah, it's a
So,
good measure. That's cool.
so
Well,
yeah.
thank you, Bella, so much for sharing your whole story today. I feel like you had a lot of good things to share. You guys remember you can find her on Instagram, Culinary HCG, and also YouTube. She has some recipe tutorials for phase two, it sounds like. So Culinary HCG too. So I'm telling you, after seeing what I saw so far, I'm like, you really should like just come up with a book or something, or a little, ebook or something that has recipes. I think that's
Yeah.
because you have some really creative ideas. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to move into P3. So I'm happy that that people have, I guess, taken a liking to the P2 recipes, and so now I can move into P3 and kind of share that with people, because I know that's a huge factor
It
for people.
is. People ask me all the
They're
time.
so scared. They're
Yeah,
like
they wish
freaking
like
out.
they want me to have a P3 cookbook or P3 rules, and it's so hard. I feel like ideally, I love the idea of a phase three cookbook, but I'm just probably never going to be that person to create it. So maybe you can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I feel like what would be so awesome, I've already thought this all out. Like, I feel like what would be great if it had would be like, because we all know that dairy and nuts are like I said in my P3 articles, there are things that people sometimes have issues with. So it's like people may or may not choose to include those in phase three, or if they do, they may choose to include them a little later. So I felt like having a recipe, like a base recipe that's like almost no way you could be allergic to it, and then
No, yeah,
have like
yeah,
the optional, like if you want
yeah.
to add dairy at this point, this is what you
Optional
would add
robe,
in this
or
recipe. And
yeah,
this, if you want to have nuts or add in nuts now, this would be what you would add, and like have that on every recipe so that people could
yeah.
methodically either avoid it or methodically like incorporate it gradually throughout. You know what I mean? Like that, I just thought that would be
Yes,
cool.
that's such a good idea. It
So
reminds me of those
maybe
like,
you can do that.
I know. Well, a lot of people are like, is this P2, P3? It's hard because when I post something, a lot of times people are on 2.0, hCG 2.0.
Yeah.
They're on, and I'm not familiar with that protocol. Obviously, I'm on my last round. So, um, but yeah, definitely. So then they're like, is this for my protocol or this for my protocol? I'm like, I don't know. I only know the basic protocol and then the 800 and 800,000. So, but yeah, just making myself more educated, I guess.
Yes.
We'll work on
Yep.
it.
All right. Well, you have a good day, Bella.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go
yeah, thank you so much.